Hey, it's Nootsie. Today I'm going to talk about the spine, the spirit, and embodiment. I had no intention of doing another video in this series, but when I was doing some organizing in my office and looking at the copious amount of notes that I have taken as I've been studying this subject, just for my own benefit, it really has been so powerful for me. And I realized that there were some things that I had left unsaid, but the word embodiment dropped into my heart, and I really wasn't even sure what it meant. So as I began to look into it, it really means the body as the home of the complete human. And what began to really become apparent to me is that we have dual citizenship. A lot of times I feel like we think that, or I have felt like my soul was a prisoner in my body instead of my body is the home of the spirit. And so our body should be a source of spiritual insight, making the non-visible visible. And there is a teaching that talks about how we can train our senses to distinguish between the beautiful and the injurious. And so today, my hope and my belief is that I'm going to help change your expectation and your belief and your ability to see the body in a different way, to begin to use it as a source of spiritual insight instead of it feeling like a prisoner or a cell for the soul. So we're going to get right into the spine, the spirit, and embodiment. So what really is possible for this embodiment process? Well, we've been talking about how the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spine, and that our mind is this elaborate filter or receiver. And when we're born, we're kind of like a blank canvas. And then we download these programs about how to be a good citizen, how to be a member of a family, our culture. It is like this high-tech filing system of our past experiences. And, our central nervous system, it is the brain, and then it is the spinal cord, which is at the brainstem, or the medulla oblongata, which has been referred to as the mouth of God, and it runs down to the sacrum, or the sacred. And that really has blown me away, that, our spinal cord starts at the medulla oblongata, which is called the mouth of God. We are dual citizens. We are a spirit, housed in a body. Our body is our home. And, we are created to have this filter and then this superhighway of information that runs up and down the spinal cord from the mouth of God to the sacrum and back again. And the spinal cord can be thought of as like a windmill that generates the electrical current of our body. And so we've been talking about how if we want movement and momentum and change in our life, we have to have movement, flexion, expansion of our spinal cord. And that's kind of how I first entered this whole study. Is I really felt impressed about I needed to get a yoga wheel, and then all of this started to open up before me. But we know now that we just practice the same emotions over and over and over again, and we become imprinted by those emotions depending on how much that experience of our past affected us. And so that's why they say that we don't see life how it is. We see life how we are. And there's that saying that really makes sense to me. I didn't really understand it fully. I mean, I knew it on an instinctual level, but it really has come home to roost that to the pure, all things are pure. To the judgmental, all things need to be judged. To the fearful, all things make us afraid. It's not because we're bad people. It's because we have practiced these emotions from these experiences that have been imprinted on us, because our personality is made up of our personal reality, or the things that we practice over and over and over again. The good news is we can train our central nervous system to tune in to whatever we want to create for ourselves. The harder news is that it takes training and practice. And I've been talking to my husband a lot about all of this and trying to figure out ways to articulate this, download of unbelievable information that has just been so helpful to me, and I've been wanting to figure out ways to communicate it. And, my husband came up with the idea. It's kind of like when we're playing these old programs, it's like those old rabbit ears that, I grew up with as a kid, and some of you may remember that, where it was the kid's job to go up to the TV and adjust the rabbit ears to get all of the channels. And so that's what it's like when we play these old programs. And then if we begin to change the way that we look at our body and our dual citizenship, it's like all of a sudden we tune into this humongous satellite dish and we become this big Wi-Fi signal of all of these different programming and all of these different channels. It's a matter of beginning to change the way that we look at our body and the possibilities of what we can create in our life. And, they have that saying, as in heaven, so on earth, as above, so below, because we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. And there is nothing that we can point to in life, in nature, that can be in contraction and growth at the same time. You're either in one or the other. And the definition of contraction is to decrease, or the process of becoming smaller, or to withdraw. And growth means expansion or gradual increase. And so the physiological symptoms of being in contraction are things like restless leg and feet and numbness in the legs. So those people who have restless leg syndrome, that's the body unwinding at night from being in fight, flight, or freeze mode. Anxiety and shallow breathing, having a shortened breath. Darting eyes. If you try to meditate and your eyes want to dart all over, that's because you are in fight, flight, or freeze mode. Leg and foot movement, reported or observed fidgetiness, restlessness, feeling trapped. I mentioned to you that, when my husband and I would get in a scuffle and he would come towards me, I would feel like he was looming over me because I was triggered, and my fight, flight, or freeze mechanism would be in high gear. A sense of running in life, or just having to go from one activity to the next, or excessive exercise. That has been my escape hatch most of my life. Crying, hands in a fist, desire to punch or rip, a flexed tight jaw, grinding the teeth, a snarl on the face. If you've ever seen a picture of yourself and thought, why am I such a frowny face? That is because we become intense, and we have that look on our face from being in fight, flight, or freeze. Fight in the eyes, glaring, fight in the voice, feeling of anger or rage, a desire to stomp, kick, smash with the legs and feet, homicidal, suicidal feelings, knot in the stomach, nausea, burning, metaphors, I feel like a bomb's gone off on the inside, I feel like a volcano, I feel like I'm going to erupt. So when we are in a contracted state, we get lost in our physiology, in our biology, and we get lost in those rabbit ear programs, and we get led away from who we truly are. One of my favorite C.S. Lewis quotes says that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. He's saying essentially we are that spirit that is housed in a body. And on that same vein, there is the teaching that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We're not duking it out with people. We're actually wrestling with our thoughts and emotions about things that happen to us. And that word wrestle in the Greek means a bout, a conflict, a contention, a contest between two people. And then when you compare that to what Donald Hebb, that neuroscientist in 1949, said, that neurons that fire together wire together. And so the fighting, the wrestling is the unwiring of the trauma that fired together, and we have to rewire it, unlearn that prune those synaptic chains and stop the brain from being that overactive smoke detector, because we really are this elaborate receiver, and we have this data that runs up and down the central nervous system. And the better way to live, the better way to do it is to train our central nervous system, to train our brain, to train our spinal cord, to receive the information that is beautiful and not always looking for smoke and fires. You know, we are a dual citizen. We are a spirit that is housed in a body. We have the capacity to carry light, to carry love, to carry wisdom. We have the kingdom of heaven on the inside. It says in the scriptures that the kingdom of heaven is the hope of glory. And that word glory means a celebration, a splendid condition. It means brightness. And so what does that look like? You know, what is the better way? So instead of having, policing other people's activity, like, always judging what they're doing, their actions and their behavior, what that does that is our filter, is it literally causes our frontal lobe, which is the crowning part of our brain of humans. It shuts that down, and we can't really think and reason things out as well. And we really become dumbed down, and we function out of our limbic brain, which is, the back part of our brain. And we're down regulating the body because we are so narrow focused, and we can't see anything but like, how the heck am I going to get out? And so instead of being able to see the best in people, we end up seeing the worst case scenario. We forecast out what the worst case scenario is in case we need to fight, flight, or flee. And so everything that we think we are is learned behavior. So we have to learn different things and different ways and different modes of being, because we truly are sovereign children of the soil. We are made up of the dust of the ground. We are created by the Creator in the Creator's image, meaning we have creativity. If we can tune into it, we have a river of life and wisdom and love and light-carrying capacity, because we are created in the image of the Creator. Happiness is then an inside job. The kingdom of heaven is on the inside. My husband came up with this one. When you are functioning in contraction, it's like you're looking at life through a keyhole. You can't see life for what it really is. Or some people talk about, it's like we have a blindfold on, and we're feeling on an elephant, and if you're only feeling the tail, it feels like a small animal. If you're only feeling the tusk, it feels like a snake type animal. So if we can tune in to that river of life, if we can have our brain filter into things that are beautiful, we can rip that blindfold off. We can push that door open, and we can see potentials and beautiful things in life that we never had the opportunity to see before, because we are a spirit. We are a citizen of the spiritual heavenly realm, and we have capabilities that are like this huge satellite instead of those tiny rabbit ears. So then how do we go from feeling like our soul is trapped in our body, or that we're a prisoner, to a better way, to having expansion and growth and that river of life flowing through our central nervous system? Well, first and foremost, I would say we have to invite the new and the unknown and that creative force or the divine creator into our lives. Whether it's biblical teachings or Rumi, they're all saying the same thing. In the Bible, it says, draw nigh unto God and God will draw nigh unto you. And Rumi and other ancient teachings say that what you are seeking is seeking you. It is just a truth that if we draw nigh to that, if we open up our heart, if we invoke and invite that creative force, that all-loving, powerful source of the universe that is a river of life and creative in its forcefulness, that if we invite that into our life and open up our heart, it's going to happen. So that is first and foremost. And then I would say, secondly, if you don't acknowledge the sacredness of the divinity of the spirit that is residing in your body, who do you think will? It has to come from us first. We have to set time apart to become in touch with the spirit that is housed in our body, that it is sacred, it is divine, that we are created in the image of the Creator. And then we have to go after that. We have to realize and cultivate that sacredness in our own being. We have to stir it up, as the Bible talks about. And we do that through repetition and consistency. Whether you look at it from a spiritual perspective or a scientific perspective, we are not wrestling against people or things that happen in our life. We're wrestling with the emotions and the thoughts that we associate with that. That's what the wrestling, not against flesh and blood. We're wrestling with our own propensity to judge it in a negative way instead of seeing it, the beauty in it. And so I think we have to extend our vision beyond what we can see. We have to believe in the invisible, and we have to believe in the seemingly impossible, I think I would say. We all have said, when we get an insight on something, I see. We're really not seeing with our physical eyes when we get an insight. We're seeing with our spiritual eyes. Or we'll say, I get it now. I see now. What is that sight? That is the sight of our spirit. And I think we have to just open ourselves up and tune in to the sacredness of the spirit that is housed in our body. We have to set time apart and to give those rabbit ears a rest and tune into that force that's greater than ourselves and draw near to that loving, creative, powerful, energetic, light-carrying river of life force that is housed on the inside of us, that is animating our physical body. And that's why I get up when it's dark. I don't feel like it a lot of times. And I go out and I do a walking meditation and I speak words of life over my body. I talk to my cells. I say, cells, we're a city set upon a hill. Atoms, be filled with light. I talk to my body. I talk to my physiology from the spiritual perspective and the sacred perspective of that I am a spirit housed in the body. And I think that's why breath work, God is referred to as the breath of life. And if we don't have breath, we don't have life. And that's why when we are contracted, we have shortened breathing. And the breath work has been the quickest and most effective way for me to knock myself out of contraction. And then I would say gratitude is a biggie. You cannot be thankful and be judging at the same time. So I have a notebook that I keep with me, and anything that I come across, whether it's big, little, or otherwise, whether it's a cardinal or a possum or somebody let me in traffic, I start writing those things down because I want to create in me the Wi-Fi channel and have my senses be able to distinguish between things that are beautiful and things that would injure me or cause trauma. I want to be a Wi-Fi signal that sees the beauty in life, that rides on the high places, that tunes into the creative force. So as you can tell, I'm really excited and passionate about this because it means everything. It's changed everything for me. I went from having my fist like this and holding it down at my side to feeling like, you know, there was a ghost behind every corner, or offended, or people were out to get me, to feeling like I live this beautiful, grateful, creative, filled with the divine and the sacredness of life Wi-Fi channel. So I'm hoping this will resonate. I'm hoping you will gain some benefit out of this. I would love to hear your thoughts, to see if this has had an impact or resonated, or things that you're trying. It would mean a lot to me if you would reach out and you would hit the subscribe and the notification bell, because when you do that, then it causes my videos to be circulated, because I really want to help people gain physical mastery and spiritual openness and mental toughness so they can ride on the high places. So until next time, I'm believing that you are going to expand your Wi-Fi signal and be blessed.